Hello and welcome to another edition of Around the Ice here on Fantasy and Frames, a hockey podcast. Tonight, we're going to be going over the Atlantic Division, breaking everything down fantasy-wise, what we think record-wise, what's going to be happening with these guys. Thanks for joining us. Stick with us. Welcome, fellas. Appreciate you being here. We got Brian Toast Clark and we got Aaron Tomatich. Thanks for joining me, guys. Breaking now down after we went through forwards and defensemen and tiers and goalie tiers the last couple of weeks. Now we're going in to each individual division, looking at that, seeing what we kind of think, how we think are going to turn out this year, the breakdowns, all that good stuff. I know you guys are pumped. We've got our home hockey league dynasty draft going from a keeper league to a dynasty draft. We're starting it tomorrow night, kicking things off. So very end of the NFL season before everything gets kicked off on Thursday night. But we're jumping in the hockey draft. I know you guys are pumped for that.
Let's get all this football drafting out of the way. It's done. I'm done with it. I spent all weekend, doing football drafts, mainly just getting those out of the way so I could actually get to tomorrow. Because in the end, that's what I really care about is tomorrow, the home league draft. We do a bangers, an ultra bangers, I actually call it, half point for assist. I'm sorry, half point for hit, half point for block, 0.4 for PIMS. So we really emphasize banging. And so I'm excited to get it going tomorrow, man. We're all going to meet up for the most part. 8 out of our 10 members will actually be together drafting and cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this thing changes from a redraft kept 2 originally, then turned into a kept 3 league. Going to be interesting to kind of see how it turns out.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and this group's a fun group. I know that, most hometown guys, and you got a couple coming from out of town. And so we're kind of got some, some of the guys, not everybody's local, but for the most part we are. But like just the exposure to hockey. So again, for anybody listening that maybe, I've done really well in fantasy football, baseball, basketball, whatever, thinking about starting hockey, like this was a good group to know that. Like we stuck together. Maybe that, some of these NHL guys aren't household names. NHL isn't as big as the sports I just named, but it's become that for us. So again, to your point, Toast, it's like I love watching football. So glad football's here. Awesome college football week last week.
Mm-hmm.
Weekend pros are coming, but it's the hockey draft. So the fantasy draft that's just cannot wait to kick this thing off.
Yeah, maybe JT got so excited he just went ahead and decided to leave, and he went to the draft. So here he is. He's back.
Sorry, I was having a little glitching problem. I was on a show earlier today, and I was having all kinds of internet computer issues. So I was trying to fix that before we got too far along here, and you guys are like, what happened to him? So let's to get things started off here, let's break down this Atlantic Division. Let's jump into our top 20 fantasy players we like from this division. You guys can kind of jump in it. Forwards, defensemen, anybody you want to talk about. Let's kind of get things off started off here, Toast. Let's break down the top 20 guys here.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and take the first 5 here as a chunk here, and Aaron, jump in if you have anything to add here. But I think you look at the Atlantic Division. This is a really stacked division for fantasy players in general. Very top heavy. I would say that you probably out of the top 15 players, I'm guessing you probably have at least six there. And there could be maybe another one, but at least 6. And that's a lot for one of these divisions here. So, but I think the first 2 or the first 3 are pretty set in stone. Austin Matthews, we had said in any format, it does not matter the format. This guy is going to be your Rocket Richard winner most years. It would not shock us at all if he ended up putting up another 60 goals. He will. He'll do it. He'll do it. If he's not injured, he'll do it. And coming in number 2, Nikita Kucherov as well. We're going to talk a little bit more about these teams separately here in this next segment. But Kucherov is, been going, I'd say, most formats 4th overall in redraft leagues. You got McDavid. You actually have McKinnon, then Matthews, and most times or not, it's Kucherov. And then David Pastrnak. And Pasta, man, we're going to talk about that a little bit here. He's just, wouldn't say he's on an island by himself, but that team looks a whole lot different. So I've seen Pasta maybe dropping a little bit in certain redrafts, but he's still up there. William Nylander, your guy, JT, have him coming in at number 4. Now, again, this is where it kind of gets, okay, we're splitting hairs a little bit, but Nylander is really, he's young. He scored, I believe, 98 points last year or 102 points, somewhere around there. He's right around the 100-point mark. And really, he signed that big deal, that $11.5 million contract. By him actually signing that, I really think that was the end of Mitch Marner actually having a future in Toronto. But Nylander is going to benefit from actually playing with Matthews, and he's going to get a ton of points again. Number 5, Matthew Tkachuk. And I don't want to spoil anything because we're going to talk about some of these players in detail here, but is it safe to say, guys, that Florida is now just starting to hit their stride? And I say that the fact that they've been to 2 cups in a row, they've actually won 1, but you feel like something special is actually starting to happen with Florida. And Tkachuk's only been there, this would be his 3rd year, and since he actually came to that team, they've been a special team. So he just does everything. He fills up an entire stat sheet. And he's pretty well rounded. This is a guy that most times or not, he's going right around that number, anywhere from overall number 9 to number like 13 or 14 in most formats. And that's the same way with Nylander. He's around anywhere from 9 to 14 to 15, 16, somewhere around there. But those first 3, they set themselves off from the rest.
Yeah, definitely. And going right, keeping with it. Again, score league, redraft league. You got the other Tkachuk brother. You got Brady Tkachuk. Not far after not far after Matthew. I mean, I like the idea of taking those 2 guys. If you have that hinge pick, that 10 pick, it'd be kind of cool just to show off a draft board. If you just got a kind of a screw around league, just take the Tkachuk brothers. But banger league, like our super banger league, these guys probably jump. I may say jump Nylander, maybe jump Pasta. Maybe that's a stretch, but they hit, they shoot, they score, they pass. They're what more can you ask for? Right after Brady, we got Braden Point and Jake Gensel. Tampa Bay, new look Tampa Bay Lightning, no more Stammer. You got Gensel coming in. Mitchie Marner at number 9. You mentioned him. I agree with you. They're Shanahan's kind of letting them do, and I forget the GM's name, but they're kind of letting that the contract and the money do the talking on who are the core 4 they're going to keep. I don't know when. Maybe this Toast off top of mind. I'm not sure when Tavares, when his contract's up, but we talked about this last time. He handed over the C. He's out. So they've I think made it pretty clear who they're going to build around, and it may or may not include Marner with the Nylander signing. Round out the top 10, then we got Barkov. Like you said, Florida seems to be on the uptrend. Two cups in a row, and this guy does it all. And again, I think if you're drafting a real hockey team, this guy may be your 1-2 pick because of his defensive capability.
Yeah, and Aaron, what I'll say as well, we mentioned this last show, is I know we're only looking at one division right now, so right. 8 out of 32 teams, but I guarantee you those first 9 or first 10, they're going to be in your most top 25 of most of your drafts when you actually add them all up, most formats. Yeah. And there's a common correlation here that we actually talked about last show. And this list here, Matthews, Toronto at 1, Nylander, Toronto 4, and Marner, Toronto 9. These guys they score in bunches. They play on the same lines together, the same power plays. That's why you actually have them there, is because they benefit from one another, or they're benefiting from one superstar player. And the same thing with Tampa Bay, Kucherov, Point, and Gensel. You have it number 2, number 7, and number 8. Same reason. But again, just because we're actually just doing one division here, and actually have a top 10. That top 10, I can tell you right there, that's a top 25 in most formats. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, this is a tough division. You guys got the top 10 in there. We got 10 more coming at you. A few guys sneaking in from some of these other teams other than Ottawa, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Florida. This Atlantic division is pretty legit all around. A lot of players. Who else we got here in kind of the mid-range of this division, 11 through 15?
This is where it gets a little sticky. So but I think if you put all these guys in a blender, 11 through 20, you would agree they all belong in the blender. It's just a matter of basically where are you placing them, right? So it comes down. This is really where the formatting does actually, begin to matter. Tim Stutzle at number 11, and mainly he's there because his youth. He's 22 years old. He's going to be healthy this year. What he actually showed as a 20-year-old was just amazing. He's going to be a great player. So in Dynasty formats, he's awesome. Tage Thompson, can Tage actually come back and get over 40 goals? Aaron, you may talk about him here in a little bit more detail, but that entire Buffalo team, they got a lot of young talent. Again, from a Dynasty perspective, you're going to see in our draft tomorrow, they're going to be going pretty early. A lot of these Buffalo guys, just really, really young, real talented. And then JT at number 13, we have Dylan Larkin. What I like about Larkin is the fact that, again, we saw how important he was to the Red Wings when he actually got hurt last year. He carried that team, and he did actually what a captain should do. But he will get you roughly around 31, 32, 33 goals a year. He'll get you somewhere around 50 assists a year. But also in those category leagues as well, man. I mean, he is usually in the top 5 or 6 within faceoffs won. He'll be over that 500 mark, which is pretty hard to do. So in a categories league, I think Larkin's probably shooting at the board, and he's probably in the top 8, 9 instead of 13 there. So keep that in mind. But Larkin, he's so important to Detroit. Sam Reinhart at 14. It feels a little funny actually giving a guy that has scored 57 goals last year and actually just signed an $8.5 million home, I guess a discounted deal to stay in Florida. And why wouldn't you if you were him? Being at 14 here, but we need to see if he can do it again, and if he can actually bring that 24.5% shooting percentage down a little bit, and maybe shoot the puck even more. So that way he can actually get somewhere maybe around 17, 18% on the shot percentage, and still have a shot to actually be over 50 goals. I do think, and we'll talk about Florida here in a bit, I do think Matthew Tkachuk's going to steal some of those this upcoming season. And then rounding out the top 15, Nick Suzuki. Again, the youth movement down here from 11 to 20 with the Ottawas, the Buffaloes, and the Montreals. These teams, man, they had the potential here in a couple years to be so good because they got so much young talent. And Suzuki's a captain here in a dynasty league. He's only 24 years old. I think he had 35 goals, 45 assists, somewhere around there last year for 80 points. He needs to shoot more. He's usually around 180, 190 shots a year. He needs to shoot the puck more. But Montreal, man, they're on the up anyway. I know they kind of had this black cloud curse hanging over them, but Nick Suzuki is definitely worthy of a top 15 pick here in the Atlantic division.
Yeah, I'd like to see a few more Red Wings on there, but it's just so hard to break in that top 20 in this division. I mean, this division is just absolutely loaded. Makes it very difficult. Darlene in there, one of my favorite guys. And then, you get outside the top 20, there's still a lot of talent in this division. That just shows you how loaded offensively this division is. As we get into the team breakdowns, it's going to be one of the top divisions in hockey again this season.
Yeah, I definitely, when you look at Detroit last year, scoring, 90, I think they had 91 points last year, and it just barely missed out there. I thought they were a pretty good team last year, especially if Larkin hadn't got hurt, and really Kane didn't play a full season there as well. So if you have all of them and you have health on your side, it wouldn't shock me at all if they actually jumped in there and got in the playoffs. It just shows you how deep. And last year, I think, Aaron, wasn't it that Buffalo was everybody's pick last year, right? Like they're like, oh, Buffalo, they're coming on. They're so top heavy with all this young talent and stuff. And the next thing, and then they just crap the bed, and for various reasons, mainly is because on the defensive end. And they had some injuries as well, and Tage Thompson just didn't really play the way he could have actually played. But this is a very, very deep division.
Yeah, absolutely. Buffalo goaltending as well. I would say just a cold start. You can't start. You got to have just a better start, even if you just kind of tread water until November. Okay, fine, then get hot. But they just never really got out of the gate. Stayed behind.
Yeah, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, the goalie for Buffalo, he's going to be the majority of the starts there. It wouldn't shock me at all if he ended up getting 65 to 67 starts there this year. He really finished strong last year. They had actually been waiting for him to come on, and as a 23-year-old goalie, that's very, very young for a goalie to actually be coming on like that. And he arrived last year in his last 20-25 starts. So hopefully Buffalo have some goaltending there that's a little bit more stable, and they're actually going to help that team. And because they have a lot of offensive talent, they just need to shore up the defense and actually get some good goaltending.
Yep.
Aaron, you want to round us out from 16 to 20 here on these fantasy players?
Yeah. Well, as JT mentioned, we got our one of two defensemen that made our top 20. We got Dahlin again. The one bright spot on the Buffalo defense is this guy. He does it all. He's huge. He moves the puck. He defends the puck well. Cole Caulfield, going back to our Montreal up-and-comers. Again, little small on the size. Him and Suzuki, smaller guys, but certainly they got the youth movement, the rebuild in Montreal. That's kind of right in the middle of. But again, pure shooter, great skater. He dances around the bigger guys, tough to hit. Victor Hedman, right after Cole Caulfield. Victor Hedman again, the second of two defensemen that made our top 20. Been around forever, done it all, won multiple cups, captain, or not captain, but alternate captain, and just power quarterbacks, power play, and what again. Anything good about him's already been said. Nothing to add to it. 19. We've got Savlovsky, the 1-1 pick of Montreal from the 2022 draft. Now, I said, Caulfield and Suzuki, smaller guys. Not this guy. This guy's a giant. 6'3", 230 pounds. Really, and we'll talk about him a little bit more too. We're going to kind of talk about some busts and some sleepers, but just the second half this guy had, you kind of read Montreal is like, you play for the Yankees or you play for the Leafs. Tons of press, tons of articles out there on him, tons of breakdown on his game, his skating ability, this, that, but all trending upwards is kind of to summarize that and save you, 2 hours of looking stuff up. It's this guy, somewhat like recent draft picks, not like Bedard or some generational talent, but maybe a 1-1 pick that didn't instantly make an impact. That's just what it is. Dude was 18. Now he's getting older. He's got a couple years under his belt, so big things from him. And then we got Brad Marchand, rounded out the 20. We'll see. Like we joked about it before. When his age catch up with this guy. Maybe this year, so a little hesitant to put him up too high because, if it just feels like it could go at any point. Boston's a little bit more depleted. I tell you what, they better get off it. They better sign Swayman. If they don't sign Swayman, they're really in trouble. I just read some things on that today about how far apart they are on their offers. So we'll see. I think they'll get it done, but if they don't have that solid backup goaltending, they're not going to have the push they have up front. They're going to be getting worried about digging that puck out, and Marchand his numbers could be hurt. But all that said, still a top 20 player in that Atlantic Division. He's done it for many, many, many years, and he definitely has, probably that 60 to 70 point, which would be a step slower for him, but still a solid fantasy player.
Yeah, let's move for Marchand at number 20 into the Boston Bruins. Let's talk about them, kind of our season breakdown for them. A team, has been lights out the last couple of years, but we kind of finally started to see them take a little bit of a step back, and other teams starting to catch up a little bit. 109 points for him, 47, 20, and 15 last year. Couple key departures, Linus Allmark, Jake DeBrusk. Key additions, Elias Lindholm. Questions like you just brought up, Jeremy Swayman at goalie. Pasta, can they find him some help? They've got expiring contracts coming up with Marchand. Let's kind of get into this team. What do we think? Boston seemed like a team that is primed to take a step back. Is it seems like Pasta's really still the one big guy there, and they've just lost a lot around him. And like you guys said, Marchand still pretty good, but a guy that, you feel like is going to start slowing down here anytime soon. What's kind of our breakdown for this season on the Bruins, as they are one of my teams to take a slight step back this year?
Yeah, JT, I had them missing the playoffs, and that's saying something, right? I mean, usually Boston, and playoffs are synonymous. It's just kind of assumed they're going to make the playoffs, but this is the 1 year where I look where you had mentioned, hey, they lost Olmark, which is fine. They let Olmark walk, and then they haven't really signed Swim to that long-term contract. It'll get done, and this is a matter of what's the number going to be. But they lose DeBrusk, and I think he goes over to Vancouver. Is that right? Vancouver, I think. Gosh. Well, anyway, and then they pick up Elias Lindholm. He actually comes from Vancouver there, and he was a longtime Calgary Flame there. I just don't see where they got much better. And then you got an aging Marchand who still is actually getting it done, but he's 36 years old. This is the last year of his contract as well. It's amazing to me that Pastrnak, even given the fact that you had Zacha and the whole Charlie Coyle experiments last year, actually playing the 1C and actually getting power play time as well. These guys are good, but they're complementary players at best. They're not teams or players that are actually going to drive play and actually really elevate the game of people around them. They're going to benefit from a superstar like Pastrnak. So the fact that Pastrnak comes out last year, scores 51 goals, and ends up having, I think it was 108 points. Again, just I'm throwing out numbers. I'm guessing. I think that's right around where he was. That's nothing short of amazing. Nothing short of amazing. I mean, it just shows you how good he is, man. And what really cracks me up about Pastrnak is Aaron, you saw him do it a couple times last year. Well, he'll actually skate in the middle and get that big wind up, and just nonchalantly, like an asshole, just kind of hit it past. Just like I could do that whenever I want. It made me chuckle. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
But Boston, even though they take a step back, and I don't think they're the playoff team, Pasternak's still going to get his. It will be interesting to see is what his assist numbers actually do. Is he just going to have to score, and will the assist not be there? But JT, talking about some bets as well, we rode Pasternak's over 3.5 shots on goal. At the beginning of the season, you can always catch those at plus money. Later on in the year, you're going to be lucky to actually get 3.5 shots on goal for Pastrnak at like minus 160 from a betting perspective. So at the beginning of the year, if you can get that close to even money or even some plus money at 3.5 shots on goal, and you like the matchups, that is a bet early in the season that people actually need to jump on.
Yeah. Good call with Pasta as a shoot first guy. Love that. Yeah, if you can get the plus on 3.5, that's really not that bad. I mean, that's a good solid. If anything, or if you're a parlay guy or girl, that's a good leg. That's a solid leg, a plus leg that maybe you take the money line on a can't lose, and then sprinkle it with the Pasta over 3.5, and you have a nice little parlay. But kind of put a ribbon on Boston. Would totally agree with it. Is miss the playoffs. It's a very competitive Atlantic Division. We'll probably say that on all divisions. There aren't really too many stinkers out there, but if somebody's got to miss the playoffs. And last year shocked me when they lost their the center Bergeron.
Yep.
When they lost him, I thought, okay, now they're out, and I think I had Detroit making it last year in place of Boston. Well, again, Detroit was that close. They were just a little bit more, and they could have made the playoffs. So yeah, I think this is the year that Boston is again, just going back to that, and remember the LA Kings, all the cups they won. We were there for every game the Blackhawks lost. You know, you come back down to earth at some point. You've got to rebuild at some point. Unless you're the New England Patriots, you're not just a forever dynasty. Not anymore, but still, they had a 12-year run, not bad, but nobody's doing 12 years. Not in the NHL. Too much parity. Teams are too close. The cap's too solid. It's just this is the first year they drop off.
Yeah, and I'll say real quick as well is it's amazing to me they got 109 points last year. You know, and this comes down to this must come down again culture with that team. You know, just good leadership. They just win. You know, and so it's probably a hot take them missing the playoffs. They'll probably make it.
I know,
but on paper, I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see how they make it on paper. But guess what? They probably will. And hockey people that really know the game and not just know it from a fantasy perspective, for a gambling perspective, or even just from a statistic perspective, but just actually know how to build teams, they may end up feeling differently. They'll be like, no, this is a good team. You know, they defend on the back end. They got really solid goaltending. They got good veteran leadership. That's what you actually want to be able to go over 82 games. And in the end, they'll be there. They probably will be, but on paper, they don't look like it to me.
Yeah, to show you guys, DeBrus signed a 7-year, $38.5 million contract with the Canucks, so that moves him on. Okay. He was a former first-round pick by the Bruins in 2015, so he'd spent his whole career there. Jumping to some of the betting lines right now. Bruins right now, over under 96.5 points on the season. The betting money is right now is on the over, minus 118 for the over. Under is minus 108. And they're in the 4th place to win the division. So if you do still like them, you can get decent money on them right now, as they're plus 550 to win the Atlantic, with Tampa Bay plus 430, the Maple Leafs plus 270, and the Panthers plus 230 as the favorites. Let's move on to the next team in this group, as we want to talk about Buffalo, a team that you got high on last year. Thought this was going to be the team kind of finally make a difference. They came out about as flat as you could possibly be. They finished the season 39, 37, and 6 with 84 overall points. Missed the playoffs. Key departures on this team: Jeff Skinner, added Bowen Byram. Question marks. A few of these guys I'll let you guys talk about coming in here, and then obviously Rasmus Dahlin's a guy we loved and took a lot of bets on. What do you guys think about the additions, subtractions from this team? And then give me some of your predictions on where you think Buffalo could go this season. In the playoffs, out of the playoffs, do we like the over-under on points total for this team? As I'll pull it up here for you in just a second and let you know what that is too for them.
Yeah, I think with Buffalo, I mean, and you touched on it, you know, the losing Skinner, went to Edmonton. That's, you know, that, they have Petrika that can, you know, without missing a beat, can fill that hole. So really not a whole lot of subtractions. I loved what Bo Byram did when he came over from Colorado. Really did a great job on the power play. But out of all that, and we've talked this guy to death, and we all love him. We know this. It's, you know, it sounds like we're kissing his ass. But Dahlin, again, when the guy was drafted 1-1, he was billed as a defensive defenseman, a shutdown defenseman. Again, a guy to build the team around. He is that. But the way he's turned it on offensively too, the way he's shown another dynamic to his game and done it in a short amount of time. I mean, he's, you know, to be called that, and then, you know, a shutdown defenseman, instantly, you almost, not instantly, but you kind of tune out. If your only drive is just that fantasy team putting together points, looking at the scores, watching well, for lack of a better term, a red zone, you know, I don't care what they do, but this guy has surfaced on that, and he's high level top defenseman. So I think it's a year or two too early for Buffalo. I've got them missing the playoffs, but just not enough of those additions. But the one addition they did, it was a step in the right direction. Byram played really well. He's got some time to develop in that role as one of the 1 PP defensemen back with Dahlin. So With, again, I think the biggest question coming out, and I'll kick it over to you, Toast, but I think the biggest question is, which Tage Thompson are we going to get? Are we going to get the guy that flirted with 50 goals, or are we going to get the guy that, just he puts in his 30 and 30 goals, 30 apples, and he's, 60-point guy? So for me, that's the biggest question. Who are we going to get?
Yeah, it comes down to health. Comes down to health
Right.
with Thompson. That line of Peterka, you mentioned it, Aaron. Peterka, he came on last year. And that top line at Peterka's 22 years old. Thompson, 26 years old. And then Alex Tuck's 28 years old. Fairly young. You got an average of about 25 years old on that line. And if they're all healthy together, they can do special things together. We've seen them in the past just absolutely blow up and go on and run. I did it 2 years ago. But again, everybody was actually healthy. I know last year they actually had a lot of key injuries as well. Got a young right winger, Jack Quinn. Jack Quinn played well last year as well, only 22 years old. So they are up and coming. I really think that if they can get to health, they also actually need to get that second line and Dylan Cousins and to really, I guess, play up to his expectations. And Dylan Cousins last year, again, the whole team just had a miserable season on their standards, but another 23-year-old, man, this team is absolutely loaded with guys 25, 26 and under. They have so much of that talent there, and they just need a little bit of help. And we talked about it, UPL at goalie, another young goalie. This may be the youngest team in the league with this much talent. And so Bowen Byram coming over, again, it comes down to being healthy. He's only 23 years old as well. And I just want to read off something with Rasmus Dahlin that it blows your mind on what this guy does. I got some projections this year. He's projected for 18 goals, 46 assists for 64 points. You're like, okay, pretty good for a defenseman. Not elite, but pretty good. Project for 240 shots on goal. He shoots like a forward and a really, really high shooting forward. Projected for 167 hits, 146 blocks. So he hits and blocks. Usually you have guys doing one or the other, right, as a defenseman. Mm-hmm. And projected for 72 PIMs. I mean, and 25 minutes of ice time. It's like, so we got this ultra banger league we're talking about. This guy is he can do everything. Now he's 24 years old, $11 million contract he's signed for the next 7 years. I think after this, I think that last year was his first year on that deal. This is a guy you actually just want to anchor to, and actually just have him in your lineup for years to come. They're like, hit those over 2.5 shots on goal throughout the entire season. Again, pick your spots. Pick your spots in those teams that actually give up 36, 37 shots on goal a game. Take Dahlin, and you're going to win a lot of money, because even at 2.5 shots on goal on the over, you can probably get him close to plus money at the beginning of the year, but it's probably going to be more like 120. But a great parlay piece, because it's eventually going to be 160, 170. So you just got to look at early in the season and jump on him, because he shows every year he shoots a ton.
Yeah, and I brought up on the last show, Dahlin in our Bangers League was the #1 points per game defensive scorer in our league. Averaged over 5 points per game, fantasy points per game in our league. He was number 21 overall in our league in scoring. Yeah. And that's talking about all these other high-scoring offensive guys. He was number 21 in the entire league in scoring in our Bangers League. So, yeah, he's a guy who can do a little bit of everything. Just looked up the over-under for the Sabres. Right now, it's sitting at 88.5 points on FanDuel. It's minus 113 for the over and the under, right there in the middle. So 88.5 on a team that last year was, as we kind of talked about, was a disappointment and had 84 points. So you're like, if this team could do anything, 88.5 seems like something that's a reasonable thing they could hit. The problem is the schedule, the division. This division is going to be tough. So even a marked improvement I could see this team still missing the playoffs and still maybe not hitting that mark, even if they look better.
Yeah, well said, JT. I do think they'll miss the playoffs, but I do think they're going to be better. And so I kind of like that over 88.5 still, especially if they have any luck with health. And if UPL can actually come in and goaltend even remotely close to what he was actually doing the last month of the season, I like them over 88.5. They can get there.
You guys ready to
Speaking of over 88.5, JT, why don't you tell us about Detroit here, buddy? What do you think about your Wings?
I was just jumping into the Wings here, so just missed the playoffs. Final game of the season last year. Tied and lost the tiebreaker. They were 41, 32, and 9, 91 points. I thought for sure they were in. They were looking golden, and then the injury to the leader, Larkin, they went on a huge losing skid for 2 weeks when he was hurt, pretty much knocked him out of the playoffs. Still almost made it in a miraculous fashion. They had 91 points last year. Over-under sitting at 90.5. Minus 106 for the over. Under is minus 120. So a few people on the under and a little more money on the under. I like the over there. I think this team makes the playoffs. I think 90.5 is right where they're at last year. I think they're at least a couple points better than that. I could see this team getting high 90s, 96, 98 points. So I'm in there on them. I think they make the playoffs. It's a tough division, so I still think they're probably looking at maybe fourth in this Atlantic, but I think they got enough in them to make the playoffs. The key for these guys, and see what you guys think, is they've lost a couple guys, but they got a couple guys back, and they got a couple guys like we talked about with Patrick Kane. They're going to have for the whole season, and he was a difference maker on that team. I think him being there the whole year will be big, and then this is a young team. Outside of Kane and a few of these other guys, still pretty young. Moritz Seider, Lucas Raymond really took big steps last year. You're hoping they take another big step this year. It'll be really interesting to see added Vladimir Tarasenko, a longtime rival. Who would have ever thought we'd see Tarasenko and Kane on the Red Wings at the same time? Former Blues and Blackhawks players. What are you guys' kind of thoughts on the Wings? I'm excited about what they can do this year. I am tempered a little in the expectations just because I think this division is so tough, but I do think they can make the playoffs.
Yeah, so they lost Sprong, and they also lost Perron, and so those points combined, you got about 90 total points there to those two guys that actually bounce between the second line and the third line, both of them together. And you bring in Tarasenko, and Tarasenko's going to put up 90 points. So you look at, okay, where are they going to get that extra point production at? Of course, you would think that Lucas Raymond's going to continue, like you said, JT, to take that step forward there. But they're still going to need a little bit more help. You think about guys like Joe Veleno, and guys like Andrew Kopp as well. Kopp, he can go on these scoring streaks. I see him do one last year where he scored like 7 or 8 goals, like in a 9-game stretch to score like 8 goals. Like he'll do that every once in a while and surprise you. So, and then JT Compher. Compher actually come over from Colorado. And I think last year was his first year in Detroit. Played fairly well. Had 8. So I don't know how many goals he had last year, but I know this year he's projected for close to 20. They're going to have to make up those departures of Sprong and Perron. So do I think they got better? I don't know if they actually got better as far as personnel, but health and also having Kane, like you said, for an entire year, that hopefully just makes the difference, right? And I do think they're a playoff team. They had some good goaltending last year. So, we'll have to kind of see where they're at this year. They've always had a little bit of sketchy goaltending. But I do think they end up getting that wild card and end up getting fourth in Atlantic.
Yeah, I'd agree. In terms of the wild card team, this is your wild card team again. What a stupid way to miss on a tiebreaker. But I mean, just and granted, this is not set lines. Obviously, lines are changed. Lines change in the game. You never know. But your top 6 forwards on this team, and again, they could change this up, but you got Larkin in the middle, Raymond and DeBrincat on the sides. Line 2, JT Compher, who, what you just said, Toast, couldn't agree more. He had big seasons in Colorado. He's got a year in Detroit with him. This guy's a streaky guy. But you got assuming healthy Patrick Kane and Tarasenko. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch on your line 1, line 2. Again, you can mix and match those guys. I know DeBrincat and Kaner like to play together. Relive the Chicago days when they both knocked it out of the park. But yeah, and again, going back to the loss of the only guy I think they're going to miss is David Perron. You're in the Atlantic Division. You're going to play all these other teams a bunch of times. Florida, Ottawa, each has a Kachuk brother, and Florida, Ottawa. So you've got these nasty skilled guys that happen to have the same last name, happen to be in the same family, but you needed a piece of shit like Perron to go chase them down and get in their heads and maybe keep them off the score sheet, maybe just mess with them a little bit. So I don't see a replacement for him. I hated that guy when he played for the Blues.
Yeah, well, he's a Blue for one.
Yeah, that strike one.
Is that?
Yeah. And then strike 2 and 3 is a giant piece of shit. But you losing that does I think, and again, you got those nasty guys in the locker room. Like, you might never go to dinner with them, but that this guy's he's gonna bleed out there for you. He's gonna make somebody else bleed. He's gonna, get penalties called against him because he's yapping. It does make a difference. Is it making this guy like that make him miss the playoffs? No, I don't think so. I think they're fine. They got it locked down. I believe in the Yzer plan. And I think your key is Comfer. What are you going to get out of your second line center? No pressure, but tons of pressure on that guy.
Guys, we got a few new listeners who have never joined the show. Got a fantasy question here. I'm going to pull up for you guys, let you jump in this. We talked about this a little bit in our pre-draft show, I think 3 weeks ago, when we talked about just kind of getting ready for your fantasy draft. So Jamie M asking us a question. My question is, better off to draft goalies in the first few rounds? Are you going more defensemen or high-scoring players? Toast, I'll let you jump in and talk to this one because we went over this. Feel free to, Jamie, to go back and listen to that episode on podcast or on YouTube here. But go ahead and give them kind of the mini version, Toast, of kind of where we were originally when we went over this.
Yeah, so the short answer, and I'll actually back it up with maybe a little bit of an explanation, is that no, you do not actually draft goalies in the first few rounds of mainly any format. And that's just my opinion. I think that's the majority of fantasy managers' opinions as well, that you allow maybe a few rounds to go by and don't really start thinking about a goalie until probably the 4th or 5th round. Now, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds are going to get your tier 1, tier 2 goalies. You're probably your top 5 to 6 goalies in the league. But you can actually wait on goalie and maybe wait to round 6, round 7, round 8. And you actually wait for the guys that aren't ranked as high, like the Vasilevskis or the Jeff Skinner. Well, Skinner may end up being a little bit ranked a little bit higher this year, or even Georgiev, for Colorado and stuff. They're volume starters, and their teams are good. They're going to get wins. So it all comes down to your scoring format on goalies, and does that actually matter? And it also comes down to specifically how many goalies are you actually going to play? Like, I know in our dynasty league, we just cut the goalie out a little bit because we're just going to go ahead and play one because it just makes it easier because there's such a volatile position. So in saying that, Jamie, goalies are the most volatile position in hockey. It's as simple as that. They can't be trusted. You have to just basically get lucky to actually hit one. And there's only about 2 or 3 that are going to be there year in and year out, and they're going to be a guarantee for a top 5 goalie position. Other than that, you have no idea what you're going to get. I equate it to, in fantasy football, when do you start taking a quarterback, right? When are you going to take a quarterback? And there's lots of good quarterbacks actually be had in around 6, 7, 8 if you just wait. So now if you got to start 2, and in scoring actually makes it where they're unbelievably valuable, then you got to go a little bit sooner, right? You got to at least make sure you get 1 top 10. But if it's not 2 and the scoring really isn't really making them a high commodity position, just pass on them.
Yeah, Toast, I was going to say to kind of bounce off that, because we've been in leagues both ways. If you're in a league where basically you're getting all your points from a goalie on wins, and the win total is really high, say you get a win, it's 5 points or something crazy like that, or your goalie gets a loss and it's like -5, that's when you want to, like, okay, I want to be taking guys on winning teams. If you're in a league where they don't count much for a loss, say it's only -1 point for a loss, then you don't need to worry about it as much. But we were in a league where it was basically all wins or losses and nothing else really mattered. And if you had a team that you had a goalie that wasn't on a good team, he would murder you. So really just got to look at that. Check what they're doing for saves, goals against. If they're giving you a bunch of points for saves, then you can take guys on not as good teams. But as long as you're not going to get killed if they give up 2 or 3 goals, but you're going to even it out with a lot of saves, that's the way to go. So definitely always hit us up on Twitter with specific questions, or if you have like goalie specific where you know the scoring is, we can kind of give you a better idea on that. Most leagues are start 2 goalies, so that's a big thing, is just really look into that. Looking at are you getting negative points and a lot of negative points for losses and goals given up, or is it very minuscule? Then that will tell you, hey, jump in early on one of these guys, or I can wait.
Yeah, and it may be where you look at the average scoring of a goalie position relative to an average scoring of a forward position, and let that actually help you out as well. Because you may realize, like JT said, these goalies, they just don't score anything, and the drop off so drastic from the top 3 or 4, it's just not worth it. So just be aware. Buyer be aware.
The NHL is notorious. There's going to be a goalie that none of us ever heard of, or that didn't make anybody's list. I don't care who it is. If you're the NHL, NHL.com, or you're the HockeyNews.com or TSN, there's going to be a goalie or 2 that aren't on anybody's list, and they're going to do well. So you can play the free agent wire on goalies too. So like Jamie DeCord last year in Seattle.
You guys ready to move on to the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers? 52-24-6 last year, 110 points. They did end up winning the cup. Didn't really add anybody. Didn't really lose a lot of guys. Brandon Montour, pretty much their biggest one. The question is, they've played a ton of hockey the last 2 seasons. Do they get burned out? They looked a little slow last year to kind of start off the year after the long run through the playoffs. Where are you guys at here on this Florida team right now, currently on FanDuel? Their over-under point total is 103.5. It's -111 for the over, -115 for the under. It's 103. It's a tough division, but they scored 110 last year. Where are you guys at? How are you kind of feeling about the Panthers and their chance of repeating?
I mean, well, if we're talking the cup, I don't maybe not the cup, but definitely I have them first in the Atlantic. I think they'll win. I think they're a machine. There's going to be a little bit of some tiredness, some again, for lack of a better term, the Stanley Cup hangover. Yeah, maybe to that. Are they going to score 110 and knock it out of the park like they did? Yeah, maybe. I definitely go the over on that bet, though, on that line you just read off, JT. I think that they didn't really. Brandon Montour was really the only departure of note. Everything else will be kind of business as usual for this team. So I'm going the over on that, and I think they'll win the Atlantic.
100% agree. You got one expiring contract that Carter Verhaeghe says last year on a $4.2 million deal at 29 years old. They have their core in place, especially with the re-signing of Reinhart. They got Matthew Tkachuk actually locked up long term, and I think Barkov kind of just proved to everybody that he may be the best 2-way player in the game. And so from a categories league, Barkov is awesome. Again, he does a little bit of everything. He kind of drives the play there. I agree with the first in the Atlantic division. And really, Matthew Tkachuk, over 34.5 goals. And if you can find out at plus money, I'd say jump on it. He usually is up there. Last year, he was actually down a little bit on the goals. I think he didn't make 30. I just think that he's a bona fide leader of that team. He sets a tone. I like him for over 34.5 goals. And I just don't think that Reinhart's going to score anywhere close to the 57 he actually had. I think it'd be somewhere probably in the neighborhood of 45. So, but I think they're still going to score as a team. So I just think Tkachuk will pick some of those up, and I like the 34.5.
Yeah, currently Florida's plus 230 to win the Atlantic and plus 1,000 to win the President's Trophy.
I like the plus 230 to win the Atlantic. And I don't think there's going to be any hangover at all. They would have had their hangover last year and they didn't really. Now, I mean, they didn't come out like the absolute ball fire, but they were really good all year. I just think they've proven that they're that good, and now they know how to win. So I don't see them slowing down at all. I feel like plus 230.
I feel like they're a little bit better, and everyone else in this division maybe is just slightly worse, at least at the top. And the other teams at the bottom are getting a little bit better. So that I kind of lean towards the Panthers there. Let's keep things moving along here. Let's jump in the next team, Montreal. The Canadiens, 23-24 record. They were 30, 36, and 16, 76 points. Missed the playoffs. Didn't really lose anybody. Couple key additions here, as well as a team that's just young, trying to get better as they get along. They added like Patrick Laine and Ivan Demidov. Talk about, Aaron, just a little bit about what Montreal's adding. I don't know about you guys. I still think this team is not good enough to compete with everyone else in the division, but they are at least competing in games. They are in games now. It isn't an automatic. I mean, I remember looking at the list and going, oh, who's Montreal playing tonight? Okay, I'm going to take that team on the on the buck line. So at least they're not a guaranteed give me win for teams. They are getting better, and they do have some exciting players.
Yeah, no argument here. I think you hit it all the main points there, JT, with your view of Montreal. They're not going to make it, but they're doing the rebuild the right way. You're a very hockey conscious town, so the fans, the media, they're not going to let you get away with taking a day off. I think they got the steal of the draft with Demidov going whatever pick they had, 8th, 9th, whatever it was. I think this guy slid a few spots just because he's tied in with this Russian contract. What's the story? But whatever the story behind that is, they got him. So probably may not make an impact till next year. But again, with the build, missed the playoffs this year, but we'll have a different conversation maybe in 2 years that these guys could be bumping some of these this old blood out of the Atlantic Division and time to make at least a wild card run, but not this year.
They're going in the right direction. Slavkovsky 20, Doc 23, often injured, but nevertheless 23. Newhook 23, Caulfield 23. Cleveland Primo, one of their big-time goalie prospects, 25. Nick Suzuki, their captain, 25. Patrick Laine, 26. All of their best players are 25 and younger. So they've built a good core, and they've actually built a good now they're just, again, they're going to take their lumps, like you guys said. It may take a little bit more time, but they're definitely going the right direction now with Demidov coming on. You got to love what Montreal's doing. Last year, Nick Suzuki, I played the crap out of him with assists. And he's been going up in assists and goals every year in the league. His last 3 years, he's actually increased every single year. I think he'll actually do that again, especially if these young guys actually continue to actually get better and on that trajectory. I love Nick Suzuki for assists. You can probably get him right around a minus 125 about each and every game. Again, another good parlay piece.
Yeah, what do you guys? They're right at that 76 points they had last year. It's over under 75.5 right now, minus 111 for the over, minus 115 for the under. So pretty much right in that same ballpark. Like, I'm with you though. I do like to look at the Suzuki bets. Let's move on to Ottawa, the Senators. They were another big disappointment last year, a team that I think a lot of us thought were going to be much better offensively than they were for most of the season. They finished 37, 41, and 4, 78 points total. Some movement on this team. I mean, we saw the coaching change. Everything was a disaster here early on for Ottawa. What do they have to do to turn it around this year?
Well, I'll take this one, if you don't mind, Aaron, because I absolutely love Ottawa. I always do. Their goaltending sucked. So what they do, they actually go out and get Linus Ullmark. Won to Vezina a couple years ago. Just actually kind of hoping to shore that up. They trade Jacob Chikrin to Washington because Jacob Chikrin's not a defensive defenseman. He's an offensive defenseman. And who they actually get? They get Nick Jensen, a true defenseman, in his replacement. They bring on David Perron over from Detroit. And honestly, I was looking at the lines today. Projected lines, they're line 2 of Norris, Pinto, Batherson. I'm like, that's kind of like the kid line, right? And they've all actually took their churns being injured. quite. I mean, but these three guys are so unbelievably talented. If they could stay healthy, and it's like a broken record, Aaron, right? I keep saying it. If they could stay healthy, this and that, but with a lot of these teams, man, health has actually been especially an issue in Ottawa. If that second line can stay healthy, and you can pair them with the Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, and Claude Giroux line at number one, they are so top heavy. And those two lines together, I'd put up against almost anybody in this division, and that's actually saying something. They're that talented. So I had them barely missing the playoffs, fifth in the Atlantic. It wouldn't shock me at all if they come up and got a third or a fourth. It wouldn't. They got so much talent on that team. I'm going to continue to play the Brady Tkachuk bet of 3.5 shots on goal. I'll just do it. I'll do it all the time. If he's going up against a team that actually gives up quite a bit, you play that. You're probably going to still end up having it at +1 or -160. Parlay it with something else you actually like, but you got to have that in there because that's almost a given. Tim Stützle, we know he played injured last year. Hoping he actually comes back healthy. An assist. He still had 52 assists and 70 some games last year, playing hurt the entire year. So just think what he can actually do when he's healthy. It wouldn't shock me at all if he ends up getting over 70 assists. So he'll be a good assist guy, especially at the beginning of the year. You might be able to give him close to plus money and an assist.
Yeah, Tosin, this is one of the teams that the points line, you can see how much expected compared to the 78 points last year, 91.5. And money is on the over right now. So that tells you how much more. Yeah, a lot of people really like in Ottawa, 91.5 points, -120 right now. So that shows you how much with a lot of these other lines, they've been about right where they were last year. This is the first big one we've seen a huge jump in double-digit points from one year to the next. So I think there are a lot of people out there looking for the Senators. Aaron, you got anything to jump in on the Senators before we move on to our next team?
Yeah, I mean, I love what you kicked off with there, Toast. The biggest problem with Ottawa last year, in a nutshell, they'd score 7. The other team they were playing would score 8. Yeah. You got a goalie now, and you got a defensive defenseman. Traded some of that, and then again, we talked about Detroit losing their piece of shit. Well, guess who gained him? Ottawa. David Perron's playing for Ottawa. So, and the last thing I'll say is you said it, but I want to overstate it. The two of you were the ones that brought me onto the Tkachuk every day, 3.5 shot on goal. They might have moved the line too because
he's with the 4.5 a couple.
Yeah, you had to make that bet. I don't care if you play parlay, if you made one bet per night. If you made one bet per night, it was that bet. Do it every game. Just do it. And I wish I had the stats in front of me because I feel like I hit 80% of the time.
It hit a ton. It hit a ton.
It did. It was wonderful. Sure it was. If you take nothing else, Brady Tkachuk over 3.5 shots and a goal until they figure it out and then they jump it. Yep. But no, I agree with everything you said. And the last Detroit lost on a tiebreaker. This year, Detroit wins on the tiebreaker. It'll be Ottawa tied with. So it's Ottawa's turn to lose in that stomach punch way that Detroit lost last year.
Yeah, that's the danger for me as a Red Wings fan is I feel like Ottawa's going to be nipping at their heels all season long for that last spot there. Let's move on here as we're coming up right on an hour here. Our last couple teams to go over. The Tampa Bay Lightning, that team's been in the mix forever. Last year, 45, 29, and 8. 98 points. Right now, they're sitting out there over-under on the season's 98.5, a -115 for the over, -111 for the under. Didn't think we'd see this day coming, but Steven Stamkos is gone, no longer on Tampa Bay. They added a couple new additions. This is going to look like a little bit of a different Tampa team than we're used to. Don't you think, Aaron?
Yeah, it will. And I know we took a deep dive into Tampa when we kind of ranked this out. We did the tiers. We talked about defensively, offensively. Gensel, what's he going to do? Who are we going to see? Is he going to be able to? How can you fill the shoes of Steve Stamkos? But overall, they're going to make it. They're going to make the playoffs. But you still, again, you've got that line one. What's Gensel going to be? Which Gensel are we going to see? I mean, well, we haven't seen a bad one. We've seen a very good player and then a really, really good player when he went to Carolina. But yeah, and I'll they'll make the playoffs because they're deep enough. Missing Sergachev, I think, is going to probably be the biggest reason why they may be a quick exit out of the playoffs.
Toast, we had a bet. Kucherov was our guy last year. We would just parlay him together every game, it felt like, and we hit for quite a while on him. Give the folks the bet we need to be looking at Kucherov this year.
Yeah, so you can so the three best players from a fantasy perspective in the game, and that is McDavid, and that is Matthews, and that's McKinnon and Kucherov. Those four anyway. What I like doing with those guys, especially with McDavid, McKinnon, and Kucherov, 3-leg parlay. Have them to get 1 assist. You actually have their team to score over 2.5 goals because they score in bunches, and you actually have them to win because all they do is win. And if you do those 3 parlays together, you can get right around plus 200. Sometimes around plus 188, plus 200. Sometimes it's like taking candy from a baby. Because if they're going to score over 3 goals or more a game, Kucherov, McKinnon, or McDavid will have an assist. If they score over 2.5 goals a game, most times or not, 90% of the time, they're going to win the game as well. And you can just have them go against a bottom feeder. And in Vegas, where it doesn't catch on too much because you're putting 3 legs in one, I do this all the time with Tampa Bay, with Toronto, with Colorado, and also with Edmonton. Those 4 teams. You pick their superstar for the assist, over 2.5 goals, and the team to win the game, get around plus 200. I'm going to do it all year. My toast takes I actually put out, I may not even get detailed with it this year. It may just be that every single day you're like, well, this guy doesn't overthink anything. There's no reason to. No reason to overthink it. This is the easiest bet out there.
Yeah, at one point I think we just were like, gotta take it again, right?
We're
just like, take it again until it doesn't work anymore. So yeah, that's definitely one you gotta look at. Again, Toast brought it up. Toast takes. We post those on at Toast Clark on Twitter, our X, as you like to call it. Throw it on there. Let's get to our last group here, the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know, every year it feels like now it's like, oh, is this going to be the year for Toronto? Is this going to be the year for Toronto? Last year, 102 points for them on the year. Lost a few guys, lost Tyler Bertuzzi, Samsonov, added some guys with Tanev, Ekman, Larson. They gave Matthews is the captain. What's going to go on here? Can this team finally put together? I mean, they've got the name recognition. They've got the firepower. Can they finally get it all together? Edmonton finally did it last year up into the Stanley Cup Finals. Is there a chance that the Maple Leafs do it? Right now, they're over-under sitting at 101.5 points, so right where they were at last year. And the money right now is on the over at minus 120.
Yeah, I mean, with that line, I like the over on that. I don't. Toronto just doesn't seem to struggle to make the playoffs. They just don't get past the first round. They've got past the first round one time in now 20 years. So that would be the only concern. If you're a Toronto fan, that's horrible. That's heartbreaking, and that's nothing but frustration. But if you're betting these games, you're betting futures, you're just watching hockey in general, this is a fun team to watch. I like the moves they did. Bertuzzi, no big deal. The goalie drama is somewhat over. Samsonov's out. But I like Chris Tanev, again, the shutdown defenseman. Toronto can score. We all know this. Can they shut it down? Joseph Wall, they think, is their guy. Tanev will help you with that. And then Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he just got his cup. He's playing with the house money now. Bring him on. He's a guy that can lead, can score. He's a good on the power play. I like what they've done. And this is number one, take the over. They are going to be in the playoffs, no problem. And they're going to get out of the second round. We're way early to make that, but I think they're going to make it out of the second round. So I like the Leafs. Let's go Leafs.
Yeah, one other thing too, Austin Matthews to win the Rocket Richard for most goals.
Good call.
That's a plus 135 right now. I like that, of course, but also too, his over under at minus 115 is only 55.5. I say only 55.5. You got to think he's going to score over 60. And you got to think if he scores over 60, he's going to win it. Anyway, so I like both those. I obviously you can't parlay them together. They're not going to let you do that. But if you're going to go ahead and bet the minus 115 at 55.5, you might as well go and bet the Rocket Richard as well for most goals in the league. I can't remember the last time. Well, I can remember the last time It was 2 years ago when he actually had quote unquote his down season. I think he had 49 goals. but if you look at 3 out of the last 4 seasons, he's been well into the high 50s, 60s, whatever. I don't see him slowing that down at all. I'd love for him to win that award. And I love the plus 135, or I'm sorry, the minus 115 for him to be over 55.5. That's it's pretty easy money there.
Definitely.
So that's going to bring us to the end of the show here. Guys, any sleepers, busts, best return on investment players, anyone here to kind of round things out before we kind of close things down here on the Atlantic?
Yeah, just a couple quick hitters here on the sleepers, and this is just based off personal experience. So this is based off many mock drafts, reading articles, that kind of thing. Number one sleeper in the Atlantic Division is Hagel. Plays on the Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay did lose Stamkos, but Hagel should jump in with some more ice time. The reason why Hagel and you got Cam Atkinson, he was injured all year last year. Cam Atkinson is supposedly going to stay on a line with skate on a line with Hagel, so I think that can only help him. But the average round that Brandon Hagel's going is right around 11 to 13. I think that's a steal
Great
at that
value.
point. So a sleeper, good sleeper pick that round. Number 2 sleeper, Tage Thompson. We talked him to death. We've talked the pros, cons. Is the 40-goal guy. He went 38 goals, 47 goals, 29 goals in the last 3 years. Shot percentage in those same time frame went from 15.9, all the way down to 11.8. He's going to average that out. Does he get to 40? Maybe, maybe not, but he's going to get more than 29. He's on average going in round 6 or 7. That's a little later for him. Again, that's the whole point of a sleeper, but I think wait until round 7 to jump on him. Don't wait till round 7. He'll go before then, or you should take him before then. And then the last guy on the sleeper is Slavkovsky. We touched on Montreal, the way they're moving. This guy's at the center of it. Demidov should be there next year. He's a pure goal scorer. But this guy was a second half guy. 7 goals, 13 assists in the first half, and 13 goals, 17 assists in the second half. He's from Slovakia. You got Chara, Hossa, some old throwbacks, Gaborik, 30, 40 goal guys for forwards. So these guys from Slovakia know how to play the game. So a lot of fun. He's right now, his average take is between around 9 and 11. If you're in a dynasty league like we are, you may want to. I think you should take him before then. But if you're in a redraft, that 9 to 11 range, again, you may want to eyeball him in those ranges. Real quick to the bust, just I know, again, a Detroit guy on the pod, but DeBrincat, last 3 years of point production: 454, 394, 372. He played 82 games all those seasons, and his shot percentage went from 15.2, 10.3 to 11.4. Is he kind of, I don't know. Just for argument's sake, just keep an eye on this guy. Again, they're going to line shift. They're going to get some time with Kane. That could be a bad take, but he's just his points have declined. Went from a could have been 500 club guy. Now he's down to he's barely scraping in a 400. Last bust, I've got Victor Hedman. Again, the loss of Sergachev is going to put a more defensive burden on him. The dude already skates about 25 minutes a game. He's going to have to pick it up even more. That's going to cut into his offensive numbers. And again, we've talked about it, Stamkos leaving, but we'll see if Jake Gensel come back in. Last thing I'll part with here. This is strictly for the salary cap dynasty leagues. So your really advanced leagues that 3 of us are in. There's 4 guys, that jump out in this, what I call the return on investment. Return on investment, any guy that's got a bridge contract between 1.5 and $5 million. So it's not your superstars. Everybody knows to draft Austin Matthews in the first round. Everybody knows to draft Nylander in the first round. It's where the rubber hits the road are these little scrapper guys, these third line guys in a salary cap league. So what I've done is basically taken their last 3 years of points and average that against what they're paid, what their contract is. So it's These are the amount of points you're getting per dollar spent. Morgan Geeky out of Boston, he's a $2 million contract. He's getting you about 1.2 points per dollar spent. You're in a dynasty league, you're in a cap league. This guy's a guy that you highlight. He's a guy where maybe you throw him in a trade. He could just be a throwaway guy when you got those extra guys. Go after this guy. You're going to get the bang for your buck. Eric Gustafson in Detroit, same thing, $2 million contract, 1.2 points per dollar spent. And the last two guys got another Detroit guy, Patty Kane, $4 million this year. He's going to get you a point per dollar spent. And Carter Verhaeghe. Both these guys are in their last year of their contract.
Mm-hmm.
So last year you can jump on this. Who knows what happens with Kane? Connor Verhaeghe's going to break the bank. But if you're drafting it this year, you're a little tight on money. Verhaeghe and Kane will each get you a point per dollar spent. So those are the good return on investments for those of you doing the salary cap and you're looking for those guys that are under $5 million salary.
Nice. What about you, Toast?
I'm just going to look forward to next week's show where I can come in and crow about how good my draft was. We're starting tomorrow. JT, I might even be coming to you seeing if I could trade for a defenseman, sometime in a draft. Because
I'll have like 4 of the top 7.
And I'll be like one of them. So like maybe I'll do a trade during the draft. You never know. So, but no, it'll be fun next week. I think we actually going to go to the Metro Division, do that show preview, but we'll also have to. We may make it a little bit of a shorter covering the Metro because we're going to want to talk a little bit about the draft. So, but yeah, Ben, there's going to be no Guffey. There's no Guffey.
Your Guffey's talking about his favorite player.
Gustafson, no.
And you're a college football fan, me and Ben Dyer will be on here on Fantasy and Frames on the Stu and JT Brew College Football Week 2 show, betting show coming up right after this. We will jump on once we're here. Toast, didn't mean to cut you off. Give me some of your guys here to finish off the year. Or finish off the episode, excuse me.
Yeah, give you some of my guys.
Whatever you think. Just like
I got nothing else.
You don't want to tell me any of.
No, I'm not. I've already gave up too much. So next week I'll have some more to say. Let's get to the draft tomorrow.
I love it. So that's going to do it for us here on Around the Ice here on Fantasy and Frames. Thanks for joining us, guys. I'm sorry about some of the technical difficulties. We'll have this on podcast form starting tomorrow. So feel free, like we told Jamie, a new comer to the show, feel free to go back and watch some of those last couple episodes that we've been putting out. We still have quite a few more to go as we'll break down each division the next couple weeks leading up to the season. For Toast and for Aaron, thanks for joining us. I'm JT. Appreciate you guys. Stick with us and make sure you come back next week, Tuesday night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central for Around the Ice.